is Nick Panchuk and my role title is software engineer. So I've recently transitioned from being a software test engineer, so I've actually experienced both worlds. So my role involves doing a fair bit of coding work, but also doing things like providing support to applications, so doing maintenance and things like that, doing releases, so supporting releases and upgrading things here and there. So also there's a lot of design work and requirements gathering. So generally, I guess the idea is that business analysts do the requirements gathering, but software engineers are heavily involved into participating in the gathering requirements activities and design as well. So we'll basically try to work on a condition where we've got a small team of people getting together, so business analysts, software engineers and test engineers, just so that you've got different perspectives in getting the right answers for all the questions that we're trying to answer. Yeah, so I guess every day for any role starts with checking your emails. There's going to be a lot of them, but there is coding work involved, so we always have cards to work on. So every iteration is planned for 2 weeks in advance, so you know what you're going to be working on, so you can plan your week ahead of time. But you'll also be involved in meetings with different people. We'd be involved in design decisions again, lots of problem solving, meeting with people, working with distributed teams as well, so that's that sort of thing. Yes, there's a large variety of people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So first of all, it's our partners. So most teams in Suncorp partner with external partners that are located either in Australia or in another country. In our case, it's China, but there are partners that are located in India as well. So our team works with partners in China, and that creates a few difficulties, I guess, because there's the time difference and the language barrier between us as well. We also have a lot of internal clients, so my team in particular works mostly on things that are used by people in call centers, as well as marketing and things like that. So we have internal clients only, but there's a lot of people that raise support issues to us that we have to look after, so I guess they're considered clients and customers as well. But there's also a lot of collaboration between the small teams that we have on the floor that work in the same area but on different apps or on different features and things like that. So you've got people from one pod, we call them pods, working with people from the other pod quite regularly and in different roles as well. So yeah, I guess that's the collaboration that we've got going on. Yes, there are a number of skills, I guess both hard and soft, that you need to have for a software engineering role specifically, but I guess you would have guessed that it's problem solving. So there's a lot of problem solving on a daily basis, small problems to big issues, complex issues that you have to involve multiple people to look over. And you have to be good at communicating to some degree, because there is a lot of communication going around with your colleagues, especially with test engineers and BAs. So those guys, because there's a bit of handover happening between different roles. So you've got requirements coming to you, you have to be able to interpret them, and once you're done, you have to be able to hand over to the test engineering and provide enough information to them so that they can do their job properly, and also be able to take feedback well, because the feedback from, say, test engineers might not always be positive, because there's lots of bugs that are being introduced by us every day. So there'll be a lot of that going on, but also working on time. So time management skills are important, because every project has a deadline and nobody cares if something happened in production or if there was something else that came up. They're paying you or your team to deliver on the time that they've set, and it's particularly important for Suncorp because sometimes on big projects, CEOs and the board of directors would set a hard deadline for their shareholders to say that this particular piece of work will be done by then, and once that's out there, we cannot change it. So once people know that this is coming, if it doesn't, it will look really bad on the company. So we get pushed really hard sometimes to get things delivered on time. But obviously you'd have to have some form of technology background, so you need to understand how like logic works, basically how to go through code and things like that logically. It's not necessarily important to be an expert in a programming language because there's so many different mixtures of things that we use on a daily basis that it's probably impossible to be an expert in all of them. So you kind of have to have the ability to learn quickly because a lot of learning happens every day as you work on those different things. But you have to be able to learn and understand what you're kind of going through, at least on a high level, so that you can then go into the lower level whenever you have time. So I have to say that I started in IT when I was in high school, so I was enjoying my IT course. My IT class was always doing building games and Visual Basics. That's, I guess, the first start of my IT career. So my background in high school, so I did enjoy quite a bit of IT-related things, mostly as most kids in high school do. They're looking towards gaming and, looking at creating games or doing something fun in the modeling world. And then I did go on to take the bachelor degree of computer science and software engineering in uni, so that was in South Australia. But yeah, I was just kind of involved in IT all throughout my teens, so in high school and then uni, and then it just kind of went from there. I guess there's not much that really, I didn't have a magical story of one day waking up and knowing that's it, I'm going to be the best software engineer in the world, or it just kind of happened. So I guess the most rewarding aspect of the job is being involved in a big project from start to finish, and then once you actually finish it, you can see people outside the company using it and praising the things that come out of it. So that's a really good feeling. So you kind of see your role in the global scale of things at the end. So things like if you're creating a new type of product for banking customers, and you kind of just go, yeah, this is just another XML file. You've got a whole bunch of coding to do, and it's just same old. But then in 2 months' time, once it's released, you actually see people outside buying the new product or using the new product and talking about it, and you go, wow, I actually worked on that. So I was part of creating that particular piece, so that's a really cool feeling. Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that we have to face day to day is working in a distributed environment. So most of the teams in the digital areas are divided between Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, as well as they partner with teams that are located outside the country. So our team doesn't have people we work with in Australia, in a different city, but they do have a team in China, and we have to kind of deal with working in a distributed environment every day. There are a lot of barriers to that, so there's time differences, which is really big when you're working with a partner in China. There's a 2-hour lapse in the morning and in the evening, so they come in later because their day starts later technically. But also language barriers and cultural barriers, so there's things that happen offshore in terms of dev pairing or the way of working that we don't understand, as well as the language barriers as well. So the partners really do try to do English courses and study, but sometimes it does get to a point where it's really hard to be able to communicate effectively with them. So the piece of advice that I could give you guys would be to not be afraid to bring part of you to work. So a lot of the time you see new people come in and just listen to everything that people at work have to say. So there's been people that worked here for years, 10 decades even, and I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that they are they would be more knowledgeable, but I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that your opinion doesn't count. So sometimes it's actually really good to see fresh new ideas come in, and if you've been at a place for quite a long time, most of the time you're really set in your ways. So it's really good to hear someone else's perspective, especially a perspective of a person that comes outside of the company on the way we do things here or on the way something is being done. And so don't be afraid to voice your opinions, and don't be afraid to be more as involved as you can in the things you're doing, because most of the time they will be listened to, and they will be towards, there'll be a better outcome at the end of the day. Okay.